Welcome back. Quick recap. 2 videos ago we had engine trouble at the track. Last video you watched us take the engine out of the car and start to figure out what happened. We've got it apart. We now know a little bit more of what happened. Still not 100% clear on why. We have our theories and we have ideas, but you know, we'd like to find that smoking gun. You know, it'd be really nice if we could tear this thing completely down to the nuts and bolts and say, boom, that failed, this happened, or boom, I had too much timing in this, or whatever the case may be. Everybody has their own theory on it, and I've heard most of the theories, but there's a couple people that have, you know, probably came pretty close. But this is a chicken or egg scenario. It's really tough because there isn't a, you know, cold cut smoking gun that we can find so far. So we called in an expert, you know, kind of like if you were watching one of those shows, like I don't know what they're called, but you know, where they call in the expert and the expert comes in and tells them it's all shit. That's where we're at. Called Gerald, see if you do a house call, come over here and look at this mess of parts we got and try and make some sense of it. I'm not super versed in the small block Chevrolet, never ran one before. I've always ran Pontiac stuff. I've helped on Chevrolets and I've tuned on Chevrolets. I've even owned Chevrolets, but I've never raced, you know what I mean, like competitively a really high powered small block. For those of you that are just coming back around to this channel or whatever, for clarification, this is the motor this isn't the motor that Jackie bought for her car in the beginning. That motor, we found issues with that before we even started it. So that motor has been waiting on parts, and it's a little bit more exotic of a build. So the parts there are kind of hard to come by. Still waiting on those parts, but we are being told it's moving. So hopefully soon. This engine is the engine that I bought for the Corvette that we were going to enter in a contest that we just decided not to do. So that engine was just sitting here. The vet seemed, you know, it wasn't really ready for an engine like this. So we kind of kept working with the engine that came in the vet when we bought it. And that engine is done now, and we're gonna start working on that again soon. This engine was bought for the Corvette and just sat on an engine stand, and you know, we haven't done anything with it. I was able to talk Jackie into putting it in her car so we can go, you know, go have fun with her car for a little bit. I bought it from the previous owner, I think was the one who had it built originally. We have no reason to throw anybody on the bus or say anything or start any drama because we don't care about all that stuff. All we want to do is race cars and, you know, try and figure out how not to break them. We called Gerald, who is my local machinist. He's about a mile and a half from my shop here. I've been using Gerald for, I'm not really sure if his name's Gerald or Gerald. I don't know. I really don't. I've been going to him since I was 16, 17 years old. Back then I lived in the city and it was a really long drive out here, but like, I've asked him before, is it Gerald or Gerald? Because mutual friends of ours, some of them call him Gerald. You know, Lynn Morris at Port's Heads calls him Gerald. I don't know what to call him. I need to, you know, find out what he's supposed to be called, but I call him Gerald, whatever. We've always called him Gerald. He's never corrected me, so if it's Gerald, I apologize. I've been using him as a local machinist for years and years and years. On, you know, anytime I have a problem or an issue, he's always really good about helping me go problem solve and figure things out. So I called him. He said he'd come by after work and check it out. So he did not build this engine. This is just him looking at our pile of parts and trying to figure out what went wrong first, the chicken or the egg. So, but I think at the end of the day, this is a mechanical piece with 100 million moving parts, and it's going to be hard to figure it out. So at some point we just got to find what's wrong with it and move on. So anyway, Gerald's on his way over. Enjoy.
P.S. Sorry for the sound of the leaking air hose. Justin fixed it after this video, so that y'all don't have to listen to it in the future.
It was laying in the head next to the rocker, and the valve cap, lash cap was shoved up in here, but it was so loose that the push rod slid over and wasn't doing shit. So it wasn't even really opening the exhaust valve. The water drains had jumped from 38 to 68, and she said that it kind of struggled a little bit at idling.
It was idling low.
It was idling lower, and I thought, well, maybe it's just fat because yesterday was really good air, so maybe it's just a little fat, so maybe you need to turn the idle up or put some time in or whatever. So, but the first pass of Sunday, it lost almost a tenth, and it should have picked up. And I was like, well, the water drains, but man, that's not a tenth. You know, 38 to 68 isn't a tenth.
Yeah.
But it only lost 2 mile an hour. So it wasn't like terrible, but it should have picked up. And so I was like, man, I don't get it. Like the 60 foot was pretty close, but the rest of the run was slow.
It was over a tenth.
Over a tenth.
35 to 47.
Yeah. So, and I was like, man, that's a lot. It dropped a lot. It lost a lot. And so then, but when she got out, she said, you know, that's when she told me about the idle and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, we'll look at it. And the RPM on the first run was kind of, it wasn't smooth like it should have been. It was like, it had some ups and downs.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the one thing that I noticed more than anything is I always watch the percentage of ignition cut on the two-step. That tells me if I'm in a hurry and I'm looking for a problem, that tells me if I have a problem. If she goes on the two-step in any of our cars, if you go on the two-step and the percentage of ignition cut, it'll show in the data up and down. So it'll be 100%, 50%, 100% to keep it at the rev limiter.
Yeah. It's making the power it's going to have.
As long as if I click that on and it's just like this, then I know it's making power because it's trying to get past it and it's got to pull it down hard. Well, on that first run, it was like, it wasn't against the rev limiter, so it wasn't making the power. You know what I mean? So, and then she made the run and the RPM was a little weird. It had a couple of, ups and downs that I didn't think it should have, but oil pressure was good. All the vitals were good. EGTs were good. Plugs looked, rich and retarded every time we took them out. So I was like, well, it's just the air. The air is really, maybe this thing's super sensitive to air. So I was like, well, we'll take some fuel out of it. We'll go up there and make another run and we'll just see what happens. It wasn't misfiring. It didn't show me a misfire. We didn't hear a misfire. We didn't, nothing stuck out. But yet in the burnout for the second pass, towards the end of the burnout is when it chunked the rod out of it or did this deal. And so when I took it apart, I noticed that and I was like, well, that's got to be the reason. That it had to have, at first I thought when the rod let go, I thought there was an oiling problem. That's usually why a rod lets go. So I thought when the rod let go, the piston went up, hit the exhaust valve, pushed it through the fucking pin on the rocker.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I thought that must be what happened there. But then I took the fucking head off of it and there's not a mark on it. I also noticed a few things in here that happened previously that look identical. This has happened before with this motor and I don't know why. The number 2 rocker looks the same way, like the push rod come out of it and did that. And then also the number 2 main cap has been replaced, which feeds the number 2 rod, which in the block, the number 2 has come apart before.
Yeah.
So it's almost the exact same problems that they had before, but I don't know why they had it before or how long ago they had it. None of the rest of the mains look very good. They're not, these rods aren't great. They don't look the best, but those look worse. But what came first here and what do we do about it? And you can see the piston, like it touched the cylinder head.
Yeah, when it broke it
and it touched the spark plug, but it didn't, there's no damage. The valve maybe bent. The valve, you can see a little light around it, so the valve's probably bent. It probably may have touched it or whatever, but it doesn't look like it hit it hard enough to break the fucking pin. And I've never seen one of those break.
I've seen them break on the dirt car stuff. It just...
Really?
Yeah.
Well, and so everyone, Jackie likes to do, we call them Warren Jackie burnouts. It's never under load in the burnout, and the RPM limiter in the burnout's a lot lower than the high side.
Yeah, so it shouldn't hurt it.
But it is the exhaust rocker that's broke. It's from rev limiter, right?
Yeah, but usually, I think 2 different things. I think the pin broke separate from the rest of it. Normally, it didn't run long. If you look at the bottom here, it would have beat
Yeah, yes.
On the retainer, it would have beat that considerably up. I don't think.
Right. And I mean, if you look at the bottom side, like the push rod doesn't have anything. Like,
Yeah, it didn't.
you know, it wasn't like it was running like that for a whole pass or, you know, or whatever, or even the whole burnout, I don't think, you know. Yeah, and the crank is on one side and the main is on, like, looks where, oh, that's not the right, it's this one, sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just
Yep,
curious
yep,
of
yep,
what.
All the mains have a little copper showing. Would this being out of whack knock the number 4 main out before it come apart? Or would the number 4 main spun take this out by cutting the oil off to it?
Number 4 main is the last one to get oil.
Oh.
It's the last one to get
I
oil.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
I thought
because-
they oiled from the back to the front.
Well, the rear main gets oil first because the way the cap's built, and it gets oil to the rear main first. Then it has to feed the block. The oil has to go down the main galley.
Yeah, it's a backfill.
Has to backfill pressure up, and as it pressures up, it comes back.
So it does feed back to front, but it doesn't drop in until it pressurizes, which means
Yeah.
it has to go all the way back and then come
If
back.
it runs out of oil,
So number 4 main.
number 4 main is the last one, and then number 7 and number
So it run out. It ran out.
it ran out of oil.
It ran out of oil.
It ran
So-
out of oil. Yeah, there was, for some reason, it ran out of oil pressure, oil volume.
It's just wild because it was showing 150 in the burnout. So
Yeah, it's always had good oil pressure, but you did say, well, no, that was high. You said the oil pressure thing was flickering at you because the oil pressure was too high.
it would flicker in the burnout because it was
150 or
really high. Because I'd look down and it had 3 digits, and then but the one time it flickered
on
at the
shutdown.
end,
Yep.
but that was 3 passes before or something.
Yeah, but that could have been it. You know what I mean? But man, and the shutdown, it's down around 20 or 30 air rating. That last one may not get if we were to measure it here, it may not be getting 20 or 30.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Where are you picking the oil pressure up?
We were taking it from here. So this is a little dim block. There's a deal right there.
Yeah, okay, on the back of it. That, the way that oil, that's picking up straight off of the rear of the motor.
So it wouldn't show if that was dead.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't show us. It's showing us. It's showing us the back pressure to here. But if this peters off here, it's just going to lower this. It's not going to show that there's nothing. If this could go to 0, and this could be at 20.
Yeah. He was hard in it.
And the number 2 main cap got replaced. So I'm guessing that it spun worse. You know, I mean, it spun to the point where
Yeah, I think it's at 20 now.
mhm.
So, yeah, it was hurt pretty bad before. Yeah, I mean, it ran out of oil for, there's, 2 or 3 variance reasons that it could have run out of oil.
You know how I am. I just don't want to have this problem again. So whatever we got to do to, you know what I mean?
First move would be to see what kind of bearing clearance it had. Retorque up some of the rods, measure the bearing clearances, torque the mains back up, see where it's at, see what kind of bearing clearances it had.
If the main clearances
Yeah,
aren't good, then, you know.
well, yeah, I mean, especially if you're spraying it, boosted or something, you got to start adding clearance to it.
Right.
But that, number 4 main spun and the rod, it's just a lack of oil.
When I took the crank out, this was like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the tang is, you know,
It's gone.
yeah. So,
It was spinning around. It was probably stuck on the crankshaft. It was spinning around.
yes. Yeah.
So, but it ran.
Which cut the oil off to the rod, I guess.
Yeah, cuts it off. But yeah, regardless of whether it spun that and caused the rod bearing failure, it still ran out of oil.
Yeah. And what sucks is if this cuts off, you won't see it in the oil pressure.
No.
You won't see that. That's why the rod was off and it still had good oil pressure. Like it was sitting there idling with no rod and it was 75 pounds oil pressure. You know what I mean?
Only a couple things spin bearings.
Yeah.
No oil and not enough clearance.
Yeah.
That's
Especially mains.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've only ever had problems with mains once and it was because it didn't have any oil. So now the next question is, the block took a little hit, couple little dings in the cylinder. Let's see. Yeah, you can kind of see them in there. So we're gonna need a sleeve.
No.
No?
No, that'll be fine.
Really?
Hone it, rings will run right past it, and never see it.
Fucking hey, that's what I like to hear right there, baby.
As long as there's not any burrs, it probably needs to be smoothed up a little better, but as long as there's not any burrs on it.
I did learn whenever you told me about what those were on my 400 block.
Yeah.
So it's weird that they've done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's just something you do when they get loose. The caps get loose. It's
When you've had problems.
Yeah, when you've had problems. Yeah.
Okay, so going forward, I don't think that crank can be fixed, or I don't think we even want it fixed. You know what I mean? It's beat up pretty good.
Yeah, at this point, I think I would.
And it's got, I don't know, I could probably get more money for the Mallory in it. It's got 900 Mallory slugs in it. I don't know why it's got some. I've never seen that many in a crank before.
Yeah, it just got small counterweights on it.
What?
Small counterweights.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Counterweights are small, so they had to do something for the steel rod.
Right, gotcha. So, do we go? What cranks do we go back with?
What? Okay, it's a Cali's, and it probably looks like a 4-inch stroke.
Yes, I do believe it is a 4-inch stroke. Yes.
Okay.
So is it just a forged crank
It's
though?
just
Okay.
a forged. It's their Magnum series.
Okay.
It's not anything that's super lightweight. I use the Cali stuff all the time, no problem.
Okay.
So
I just didn't know because like with her motor and with my motor, it's all billet cranks. And, if we got to do that, man, we might be done.
yeah.
Because we got to wait 6-8 months on those, and they're $5,000. So if we can get away with a good forged crank, then that would be cool.
Yeah.
But what about I don't see any weights here. What's going on there?
Well, it's not a center counterweighted. You can get a center counterweighted, right? But
It's better, yes or no?
yeah, it's probably a little better. They're heavier. There's all kinds of theories about the balancing and center counterweights, and whether one's better than the other.
Because I've got 2 billet cranks from a Pontiac deal. Actually, I think I may have 3, but one junk. But I got 2 for sure. I know one of them is center weighted and one of them isn't. And they made a big deal about it when I bought it, but yet I couldn't tell you which one did it. You know what I mean? I don't know the difference because the motor doesn't tell me any different.
Yeah, I mean I've never seen any difference.
Okay, that's kind of what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I'm kind of if I can't see any kind of measurable gain or something better when I tear one apart that's had one or the other in it.
Right.
And
What do we go back with this rod?
Are you wanting to use steel rod or you wanting to use aluminum rod?
We would like to get this thing back together as quick as we can. Trying to get, the same thing that we're dealing with on hers is like pulling teeth with these people. So it's unreal, unfucking. And the whole time I've been racing, I've never come up against this before. I've never heard anyone tell me on the phone 24 weeks on something, and I'm like, what? The rod guy said we're just now getting to the Hemi rods from last year, and those guys buy hundreds of them, and he's like, you're in line. It's just,
yeah, you're at the back of the line.
Fuck, man,
I got stuff setting up there that I've been waiting 7 months for parts that I can't finish.
It's great. Yes. So we don't want to deal with that.
That's probably a 6-inch rod.
I don't know. The same guy built this one that built hers. So if it, I'm hoping it's normal stuff, but hers is, I know, really long.
Yeah, it looks like it just if it's a standard Chevrolet 6-inch rod.
With a 2-1 bearing, that shouldn't be hard to find.
Yeah, that shouldn't be. So that, Cali's has steel rods. They usually have the 6-inch stuff in stock as long as it's a standard type deal. So that the rod, if you go back with a steel rod, there shouldn't be an issue getting probably a steel rod.
Good.
One thing I would think about is instead of doing, if they have it, instead of doing a 2/100 rod bearing, how much power does the thing make?
918 or something like that at 8,300 on motor, and then we've got a bunch of nitrous on it. Well, we're not spraying a bunch to it yet, but the eventual plan, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Every weekend gets a bigger jet, you know, until you blow it up.
Yeah, until you're doing this again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, I'm not blaming this one on the jet yet, so we're not even going to change the jets that are in. We're going to leave those.
Yeah. I would consider doing a 2-inch rod drum.
That's what hers is.
Yeah. Just because you
have to do both.
Well, yeah, if you got to do both, you save some weight on the crankshaft, bearing speed, clearance issues, everything just gets simpler.
Yeah. I don't mind that at all. And that doesn't affect the piston or anything, because the pistons are hard to get right now, too. I can't really blame, I mean, I can. I hate aluminum exhaust rockers. I've always hated them. I just can't fucking stand them. Right? I like a stainless rocker.
Yeah.
But, so I'm thinking that, you know, that deal there was probably there's probably more to it than that. It's probably under extreme circumstances. But do we just put a rocker on that shaft and just pretend that this happened because of everything else? Or, you know, how serious is this setup that it would need a stainless rocker, at least on the exhaust?
Are you a gambling man?
Well, I feel like I am now that I bought everything I bought with a used motor is fucking junk. So I feel like I've lost out on all my gambles here. I'm due to win one.
If you're gambling, you never win gambling.
No, the house always wins.
Yeah, that's why they build these big.
Yeah. Oh, that's why they got them. Yeah, all them LED lights outside to catch the monster driving by.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are they? T&Ds?
No, I wish they're Jizzles.
Okay. You could do a couple of things. I mean, if you could send them all back to Jessel and let them rebuild them, or see if they're worth rebuilding.
Right.
And I'd be real leery about, you know, if it broke one pin, it's as a result of this other blow up and they had the rocker arms mixed up.
Right.
And it just now failed. Or is it something that's an ongoing issue with,
Right.
you know, is there more of the pins that are broke or loose?
Right. That's what worries me.
Is it normal that some of those push rods have the little bumps on the end and some don't? Because every one was one with a bump and one with not, but these two, 6 and 8, wherever they are,
They both have
one had bumps and one both didn't.
It's just probably the difference in the tips. They've changed push rods at some point.
Yeah, they changed something.
Yeah, they tore up push rods and replaced them.
Or one of them looks different on this end too. But
Yeah, they've just changed. You know, the motor's had a hard life.
but the push rods aren't different lengths.
Well, 23-degree head is not gonna require, or shouldn't require.
Maybe it's just the locks that they used, but it looks like the exhausts are sticking out a bunch more. You know?
Yeah, it's just the difference in the lock.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
They all had about lash caps.
Yeah, they have. These have 50 up. The intakes have 50 up locks.
I gotcha. To give less spring.
It's a different spring.
You can't get none of the head bolts out without taking all this. I had to take the center springs off. I mean, what a fucking nightmare.
Carol's like, I deal with this all the time.
Like, if I had to change a piston in this thing between rounds, never make it.
You just pull that plug wire off.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, we'd be putting jet caps in there, you know what I mean?
Just pull it off. It'll be fine. It'll run just as fast.
And it's got head bolts, which is weird. I haven't seen a motor with head bolts, you know what I mean?
I don't know why somebody would.
It needs a valve job for sure. And then number 7 threads, spark plug threads are now pissed off. So, but what about if we need a valve? Is that going to be serious?
It shouldn't be.
Okay.
Should be able. The valves haven't been, as long as it's something probably pretty standard, shouldn't be an issue to get.
Okay, cool. They almost look like they're different widths too, which is weird. Intakes are thinner, it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's just the color of them.
It's probably got 5/16 stem titanium intakes.
Yeah, for the flow around to the
Yeah,
I got you.
and
Yep.
11/32 steel valves in there. Yeah, it looks like because of the margin, it looks like a titanium intake and a steel exhaust.
Gotcha.
I just can't see the pin being.
I can't see that pin breaking and it not showing heat on a spark plug.
Or tearing up the exhaust valve, or the exhaust
Right.
valve crashed into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like I mean, you know, it had lash caps, which is nice, but you know, none of it looks beat up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it did. There's nothing to show that it should have broken.
Right. I figure, dude, if it for something to break a pin in a fucking rocker arm, in my opinion, it would bend the shit. It would tear the valve up pretty good. You know what I mean? Unless it hit it dead on somehow.
Was this deal fresh when you bought it?
Well, that's what I think. There was a miscommunication there. I assumed it was fresh. I don't know if it's because he told me it was fresh or because he just said that he just finished it and it doesn't need anything. But then whenever I went to start it, I said, do I need to run the oil that you sent me here, or do I need to run non-synthetic to break the rings in? And he said, no, rings are set. Rings are, so you can run that oil there. So it wasn't 100, it wasn't ring fresh. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a good question. The head gaskets that were leaking say it's not fresh, and the valves that need help say it's not fresh.
I mean, we have like maximum 10 passes on this deal.
Yeah, full passes to the stripe, we don't have 10.
No. There's lots of burnouts, but
We do have lots of burnouts.
yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, his car's got 300 passes on those rods and 1,000 burnouts, you know?
Oh, yeah.
This one,
At
yeah.
least, or more. Don't say it loud enough where the rods can hear you. I guess. If those rods know, they have an odometer that tells them how many they're supposed to get rid of.
And they're like, oh, shit.
they're resting right now.
They are.
They're rest.
They've had a lot of rest too here recently, so they might be fine for a while. There's a lot of people that were hoping that you'd say that exhaust rocker is the reason why all this other shit happened, because then they could blame it on her burnouts, you know? But like, please tell me that it's the rev limiter that tore it up.
It's not her fault.
When we looked up online to try and find any information on this, because I've kind of figured if there was a 23-degree small block that made just under 1,000, people would know about it. And when I did, they did know about it, but it was in 2009. Like, this deal was built 20 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, in racing world, that's a long time for small block, you know?
Yeah, everything's usually broke by then.
Yeah. And if I had to sell my motor, whoever bought it would be looking at like I am this one. They'd be going, what in the fuck? They fixed this thing 100 times. If I took them those heads in there, the girl said, don't ever bring me these back 5 years ago. Why do you sell them to you? Hell, those actually got new seats in them and everything now. We're good for a couple of years anyway.
I might tell you not to bring this stuff back, but
It's only on the right day you tell me that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then when I break it, you say, oh, we can do something with it. Bring it over.
I like
All
a challenge.
Yeah. Well, man, we are challenged here. So then good. Good.
No sleeping on a job, you know?
It's great to do. It's good to do, too. So wake up, time for school.
You know, you gotta wake up and order these parts.